Welcome back to another edition of Components Breakdown. Today we're going to look at a game that was released at the tail end of 2010 called Vinhos. Vinhos is a 2 to 4 player strategy game centered around the Portuguese wine industry. Each of the players through 6 years will compete to harvest, produce, export, sell, and ultimately present their best wine from year to year. There are numerous types of mechanics that are utilized in Vinhos, but at its core, everything is centered around an interconnected network of actions that all work together to create the game's initial complexity. Make no mistake, Vinhos is a heavy strategy game that can be punishing to those who are unaware of all their options and possibilities. No decision in Vinhos is simple or obvious, and what actions players do utilize each turn can have far-reaching effects that can last well into later rounds. But for those who look deep enough, there is a game here that is both rich and rewarding to discover. Let's take a look inside the box. Vinhos is a complex and multifaceted game, and to try and explain all of its nuances would be difficult at best. So to the best of my ability, I will try and summarize as many of the interlocking mechanisms inside the game's structure as I can so that potential players may have a better understanding of the complexity that Vinhos offers. The chief mechanism that drives players' actions and the passage of time in Vinhos is a 3x3 rondel-style grid that is located at the center of the game board. It is here that both the 9 available actions as well as the round track for each of the 6 years are located. At the start of the game, each player will place their action marker in the center of the grid. Each year, players will take 2 singular actions in turn by moving their marker to one of the 9 available action spaces. However, spaces that are not adjacent to your starting location have other player markers, or the taxation marker on them are not free and will cost that player a portion of his money. With funds being extremely scarce in the game, planning out your movements from turn to turn is incredibly necessary. The 9 actions that are available to your player are vast and varied, but ultimately boil down to 2 main types: actions that assist you in producing and selling of wines, and actions that help you turn wine into victory points. Each player will begin with a player board in front of them that depicts 4 estates and 4 corresponding warehouses below them. And through the course of the game, they will be making purchases from one of the 8 different types of vineyards from various regions around Portugal. Now, each of these vineyards offers unique abilities that will help determine the course of that player's actions for the rest of the game. When purchased, vineyards are placed on a player's estate and will produce either a red or a white wine, depending upon the color depicted on the vineyard's tile. Estates can further be upgraded through the course of the game through various actions that players take on the rondel, including buying and adding cellars, wineries, and enologists to their estates, all of which add value to that specific wine. Actions such as these that improve your estate build renown in those particular regions in which the improvement took place, of which renown cubes are then placed, allowing players a one-time increase in value when selling, exporting, or presenting that particular wine in the wine fair. The interesting thing is that the game's mechanics assign these renown cubes not to individual players, but to their regions, which results in players competing to utilize these cubes in shared areas or shared regions. Wine experts are another valued commodity in the game and can be acquired through various actions on the game board. Wine experts serve dual purposes. First and foremost, they can be discarded during one of the 3 end-of-the-year wine fairs, greatly enhancing one's ability to score a large number of points quickly. Second, they can be temporarily turned over to use one of the 6 special abilities that they provide, such as a quick influx of money or placing renown cubes onto a particular region. Players can sell or export wine, as well as gain the favor of one of the 3 available managers, all of which are marked with one of the player's 8 available wine barrels. Once a barrel is placed, it is mostly unable to be moved again through the course of the game, minus a few gameplay options that are available. But players must always choose wisely where and how they go about placing their wine barrels, lest they find themselves without enough to utilize in a future opportunity. At the end of 3 of the total 6 years or rounds of play, all players are compelled to present one and only one wine at the wine fair. Wine may be presented early in a previous round by performing the pass press release action, which allows them to lock up a particular stall or booth, which in turn grants them both a valuable special bonus, but also ensures that player the ability to utilize a specific combination of wine experts at the fair. Players that do not present their wine early by using this action on the rondel will still be allowed to do so once the fair commences. However, they may be at the mercy of other players who have already committed needed resources and locked up those valuable booths that would give them an advantage. Competing in the wine fair is one of the more difficult aspects to initially understand in the game, but it's an invaluable source for scoring large number of victory points and can be your key to winning. The bank houses 2 important functions in the game. First, it accumulates and records a player's income when selling wine and depositing cash. And second, it provides players with the ability to gather cash quickly through divesting of funds. Each player starts with 5 cash in the bank, and another denomination of actual in-hand currency to make purchases. Now these are 2 separate entities in and of themselves. The money in the bank is inaccessible unless players take the bank action on the rondel, but doing so allows players to put away cash, which can in turn result in victory points at the end of the game. Or they can invest some of that money in order to gather a small dividend at the end of each year. It is yet another small subsystem in a much, much larger interwoven tapestry of mechanics. Each of the 6 years is represented by a round track, consisting of at least 2 action phases. A maintenance phase where players will calculate their interest on bank investments and pay their enologists, and a production phase where players' vineyards will produce additional wine and older wine will age. Once the 6th year is complete, each player will tally up all of their victory points. On the game board, victory points are awarded in 2 fashions. Red victory point markers give players victory points immediately when they are obtained, while the white victory point markers give victory points only at the end of the game. Vinhos is one of the more difficult games to explain to newcomers, especially to those who are unfamiliar with any of its numerous mechanics or interwoven subsystems that make up the entire experience. It's a heavy game, and it's not entirely intuitive the first time that you play it or teach it, especially in regards to the managers and the wine fair portions of the game, and should be approached as such upon one's initial interest in the game. But it's not impossible to overcome or appreciate once you've learned what initially seems to be an extreme sensory overload. The instructions are extremely well written and should be applauded, and the designer has provided an invaluable pictorial rule set on BoardGameGeek that I will link to in the comments section of this video. Vinhos is most notably a game of extreme ebbs and flows, as your decisions are almost always based upon other players' actions. And although there is no direct conflict in the game, in a 4-player game, players almost always have the opportunity to somewhat block or hurt the next series of players' actions. There is enough variety in gameplay through such things as variable weather conditions and opening sequences in the game's setup to keep it fresh, as well as numerous interesting options for players to pursue in order to find the most optimal routes for victory points. It's a hard game to fully recommend to gamers of all types though, not because it's a poor game, but because it's such a difficult rule set to initially digest and teach to other players. However, those gamers who enjoy deep, tougher style Euro games are going to find a whole heck of a lot to like in this package, including a busy but beautiful and fully functional game board with a lot of very well produced components that only add to an already very impressive package by this first time designer. So that is Vinhos, and I am Jeremy Salinas, and thank you for watching.